Week 8 of the fantasy football season. Here's the top 20 quarterbacks I'm ranking this week. Number 1, Lamar Jackson of the Baltimore Ravens. What a season it's been for Lamar. Looks like he might be on his way to another MVP this season. And last week, he put on a clinic at Tampa Bay on Monday Night Football, throwing for 5 touchdowns and putting up a monster fantasy day. So this week, another good matchup at the Browns. I know this defense is good on paper, but it just doesn't translate on the field this season like it did last season. And Lamar Jackson's getting everyone involved. We know the running ability, the extra points there as well. He's the number 1 quarterback. Number 2, Jordan Love of the Green Bay Packers. Jordan Love, it's been a good season for him. I know he missed a few games early in the year with the knee injury. And this week, a great matchup at the Jacksonville Jaguars, where their secondary can't stop anyone this season. And Love spreading the football out, and it seems like he's getting 3 or 4 touchdowns per week. The only downside with Love, obviously, is the picks, where he's amongst the league leaders in interceptions. But besides that, he's going out there and he's putting a lot of points on the board for fantasy owners. Number 3, Josh Allen of the Buffalo Bills. Josh Allen, another great season it's been for him, no doubt about it. This week, a pretty good matchup at the Seattle Seahawks, where their secondary can't stop anybody. And Josh Allen now with new weapon Amari Cooper, it's just going to add to his fantasy value, I believe, and help this Buffalo Bill team obviously all around. And we saw Cooper already pay dividends, scoring a touchdown last week. Number 4, Joe Burrow of the Cincinnati Bengals. Joe Burrow, it's been a great year for him. And when healthy, we know he's one of the better quarterbacks in all pro football is Joe Burrow. So this week in a potential shootout with the Philadelphia Eagles coming to town, Joe Burrow, when you got 2 great receivers in Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and especially 2 players motivated in contract years, they're going to put points on the board, and that's going to help Joe Burrow in a big way. So this week versus Philadelphia, I believe a high-scoring game. He'll put points on the board amongst the league leaders this week as well. Number 5, staying in the same game, Jalen Hurts of the Philadelphia Eagles. Jalen Hurts, it hasn't been a great season for him, but now the last couple games, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith back in the lineup. This offense is rolling. Last week, a blowout victory at the New York Giants. A.J. Brown, 2 games since he returned, over 80 yards at least, and finding the end zone. And this week at Cincinnati, I think Jalen Hurts, he'll get these guys the football. Once again, number 6, C.J. Stroud of the Houston Texans. So Stroud, what a bad ball game it was for him, no doubt about it, last week. Under 100 yards passing. But C.J. Stroud, so far in his young career, he doesn't have 2 bad games in a row. So this week versus the Indianapolis Colts, I think he goes out there, C.J. Stroud. He throws for a big ball game. Tank Dell at a goose egg. He'll bounce back as well in this one. And Stephon Diggs, right now operating as the number 1 wide receiver with Nico Collins out, could go out there and have a good ball game as well. Number 7, Kyler Murray of the Arizona Cardinals. So Kyler Murray, that running ability is always going to boost him up the rankings weekly. And last week, we saw he had a 44-yard rushing touchdown and over 65 yards running was Kyler Murray. I know him and Marvin Harrison Jr. aren't on the same page, and it's pretty much Jay McBride, the only real threat week in and week out in the passing game for this Cardinal team, and James Conner out of the backfield. But with his running ability and a pretty good matchup in Miami this week, I like Kyler Murray to have another good game. Number 8, Sam Darnold of the Minnesota Vikings. So Darnold, he's been great with this Minnesota Viking team, and obviously a very surprising fantasy option this season. So this week, a good matchup at the Los Angeles Rams. Thursday Night Football, where we know most of those games are high scoring, or at least one team puts a lot of points on the board. So when you got a receiver like Justin Jefferson, in my opinion, the best wide out in pro football, it's going to make your job easy, and possibly TJ Hawkinson returning to the lineup as well, even though he's not 100%. So with all those factors and a good matchup, I like Darnold as a top 10 option this week. Number 9, Jared Goff of the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff, the last couple weeks, he pretty much hasn't thrown an incompletion. And when you got guys like Amon-Ra St. Brown, Jahmyr Gibbs, Montgomery out of the backfield, Sam Laporta, even though his numbers have been way down this season, it makes your job easy. And Jared Goff, he's fit this line system like a glove over the last few seasons. I know this week a tougher matchup versus Tennessee, where they're a pretty stout defense for the most part. But like I said, as long as Amon-Ra St. Brown is out there, and I know Jameson Williams is suspended 2 games, Jared Goff's going to put up numbers, especially at home in Detroit, where his home away splits have been great throughout his career. Number 10, Baker Mayfield of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So maybe it's a little bit high for Baker Mayfield to be on this list, but Baker's a gunslinger. I know Mike Evans out 3 games and Chris Godwin out for the season with the dislocated ankle, but Baker Mayfield, he's just a quarterback in this system that's having fun getting the football all over the yard, and he's going to find other options. Cade Otton, he's been a good tight end this season. Jalen McMillan, it's his time to show up and see what he could do for the young rookie. And also veteran Sterling Shepard and Palmer at the wide receiver position as well. So even with Evans and Chris Godwin down, there's still some viable options in this offense. And Baker Mayfield, he's a gunslinger, so the points will be there in a potential shootout. Number 11, Kirk Cousins of the Atlanta Falcons, staying in the same game. So Kirk Cousins, he threw for an insane ball game in Week 5 versus the same defense, 509 pass yards, 4 touchdowns. And this week, I'm going to go back to the well once again and think Kirk Cousins will put in a good performance. I'm not saying obviously 500 yards, but definitely someone in that 250, 300-yard range with 2 or 3 touchdowns. Cousins, we know it's been up and down season. We know he's not 100% coming off the Achilles, but this Buck team couldn't stop him a couple weeks ago. And then last week we saw Lamar come in there and throw for 5 touchdowns. Number 12, Brock Purdy of the San Francisco 49ers. Someone with depleted weapons. Deebo Samuel most likely out with the pneumonia, even though he got released from the hospital. Ayuk out for the season with the torn ACL, taking a crazy hit to the knee last week. And George Kittle not 100% with a foot injury, and we don't know for sure if he's going to play. But this is a good matchup versus a depleted Cowboy defense. We'll see if Micah Parsons plays in this ball game. But even if he does, this offensive line is good for the San Francisco 49er team, and Purdy's had a good track record the last few seasons versus the Cowboys. Team Patrick Mahomes of the Kansas City Chiefs and DeAndre Hopkins traded to the Kansas City Chiefs. We don't know if he's going to play in this ball game, but it definitely can help Patrick Mahomes, obviously, where this receiving core has been depleted this season. Hollywood Brown hurt in preseason, out for the year. Rashee Rice hurt early in the year in Week 4, torn ACL, MCL out for the season. And also last week, Juju Smith-Schuster pulled up short with the hamstring injury. So Hopkins, he's added to this team, which is a need, obviously, at the wide receiver position. But even if he don't play, it's a decent matchup at the Vegas Raiders. But Mahomes definitely has been struggling all season long to put points on the board, where this core is down to, if Hopkins don't play, to Xavier Worthy, McCole Hardman, Justin Watson, and Sky Moore. So Patrick Mahomes' numbers haven't been great this season, but he's due for a big ball game, and possibly this week at the Vegas Raiders, especially if Hopkins plays and at least could get down the playbook a little bit, his numbers could go up. Number 14, Aaron Rodgers of the New York Jets. Aaron Rodgers, I know his interceptions are amongst the league leaders this season, but he's getting a lot of passing yards of late, and Devontae Adams added to this team last week, where he targeted him 9 times. If him and Adams could get back on the same page like they did in the Green Bay Packer days, especially this week in a good matchup at a weak Patriot defense, where Rodgers had a good game versus them early in the season, I think Rodgers is a decent option. 15, Tua of the Miami Dolphins. At Tua, he's going to return most likely in this game, and it's a good matchup to return at home versus an Arizona defense that just isn't that good. We saw Justin Herbert go out there for over 300 yards, and he don't really have great receivers on his roster. So if Tua could even come out 75, 80% in this ball game, and you got guys like Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, and HN out of the backfield, I believe he could put in a decent performance for more 2-quarterback leagues this week. Is Tua, and still take a little bit of a wait-and-see approach. 16, Drake May of the New England Patriots. So Drake May, so far 2 starts, over 20 fantasy points for Drake May. He's got a good arm. I know the weapons are limited. Demario Douglas, Jalen Polk, Bolte at the wide receiver position, but it's been Hunter Henry who's been the benefactor with Drake May at the quarterback position. So May's got a strong arm. He's got some mobility. And this week, I know it's a tougher matchup versus the New York Jets, but also we just saw Russell Wilson go out there and throw for a big ball game versus Jet defense. So we'll see if May is up for the test. 17, Caleb Williams of the Chicago Bears. So Caleb Williams, no doubt about it, the last 2 games before their bye week, he went out there and had big performances with Caleb Williams. He's getting more comfortable in this offense. We know young players, rookie players, after the bye week, they get even more into the playbook and will get more of an expanded role. So Caleb, maybe he's going to throw the football a little bit more. But this week, it's a tough matchup versus Dan Quinn's defense. I know the defense hasn't been amazing this season, but the Commanders now know they got to lock in even more on defense, with Jaden Daniels most likely out in this ball game. So Caleb Williams, like I said, he's been great over the last couple weeks here, but I still temper expectations in a tougher matchup this week. 18, Geno Smith of the Seattle Seahawks. So there's a real possibility he's out with his number 1 target, DK Metcalf, in this ball game. And Geno Smith, he is the league leader in passing yards this season, believe it or not. But this week, a tougher matchup versus Buffalo. And now adding Amari Cooper to this team. This offense gets better, and it makes this defense better as well, where if they could get off to an early lead, is this Buffalo offense, 10, 14 points, let's say, then they make an offense one-dimensional, and that's where the defense really plays well for this Buffalo Bill team when they're playing with a lead. So this week, Geno Smith, I'm down on him, especially if Metcalf most likely will be out. 19, Bo Nix of the Denver Broncos. So Bo Nix, he's been one of the more running quarterbacks in the league, believe it or not, so far in his rookie season. So Bo Nix last week, 75 yards on the ground. I know the receiving group isn't that great. Cortland Sutton, Devon Vele, Josh Reynolds when he's healthy, and Troy Franklin. So pretty much it's Bo Nix running the football, managing the ball game, and relying on this good defense for this Denver Bronco team. And this week in a good matchup, though, versus the Carolina Panthers. I think 150 yards in the air touchdown and 50, 60 yards on the ground is a possibility. In the 20th and final quarterback I'm ranking Russell Wilson of the Pittsburgh Steelers. So last week, Russell Wilson, a lot of people didn't agree that he should be the starting quarterback, where Justin Fields led the Steelers to 4-2, 10 touchdowns, only 1 interception. And then last week versus a good New York Jet defense, he went out there, had a big game, including getting George Pickens the ball a lot, going over 100 yards and finding the end zone. So this week, a good matchup for Russell Wilson with the New York Giants coming to town. Their defense really hasn't been good in terms of stopping teams from finding the end zone. The only thing they've been good at is amongst their league leaders in sacking the quarterback is this New York Giant team. But Russell Wilson, it's a good Jet defense, went out there, had a good game. And I think this week versus the Giants, even though their defense has improved over the last couple weeks here in terms of getting to the quarterback and creating some turnover, he could go out there and have a good game this week. So that's the top 20 quarterbacks I'm ranking for Week 8 of the fantasy football season.